Why do you keep thinking about someone you don't even want back? You told yourself you're over them. You don't want the relationship. You don't want the conversation. You don't even want them in your life anymore. And yet, for some reason, your mind keeps going back. A song reminds you of them. A place reminds you of them. Sometimes nothing reminds you of them at all. They just appear. A memory. A sentence. A moment you haven't thought about in months. And then you wonder, why am I still thinking about this person? Maybe you don't miss them. Maybe something much stranger is happening. We usually assume that when someone keeps appearing in our thoughts, it means we still want them. But that's not necessarily true. Thinking about someone and wanting them back are two completely different things. Your conscious mind can make a decision, while another part of your mind continues processing something that decision didn't completely resolve. And that's where the story gets interesting. Because your brain doesn't only remember people because you love them. Sometimes it remembers them because something about the experience remains psychologically unfinished. Maybe you never got an explanation. Maybe you never said what you wanted to say. Maybe the relationship ended. But the question didn't. Why did they change? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? What would have happened if I had said something different? The person may be gone. But the question is still alive. And your brain is extremely good at returning to unresolved problems. Think about it. If someone asks you a question, and you don't know the answer, your mind doesn't always simply throw the question away. It keeps circling, searching, replaying, trying different explanations. Human memory and thought are strongly influenced by emotional significance, goals, and unresolved concerns. Intrusive or repetitive thinking can persist when an experience remains psychologically salient. So sometimes, you aren't thinking about the person. You're thinking about the meaning of what happened with them. That's different. Imagine someone rejected you. Years later, you don't actually want them anymore. You've moved on. Your life is completely different. But every once in a while, you remember that moment. Why? Because your brain may not be asking, do I want them? It may be asking, what did that moment say about me? And suddenly, the person becomes less important. The story becomes more important. Maybe you felt replaceable. Maybe you felt invisible. Maybe you felt powerless. Maybe you felt like you weren't enough. And now the memory isn't really about them anymore. It's about you. This is why some people can disappear from your life, without disappearing from your mind. Because your brain doesn't organize memories only around people. It organizes them around significance. A person can become attached to a particular period of your life. A version of yourself. A fear. A hope. A wound. A decision. A question. And when that memory returns, your brain may be retrieving far more than a face. It's retrieving an entire emotional context. There's another strange thing that happens. The more you ask yourself, why am I still thinking about them? The more attention you give the thought. And attention matters. You notice the thought. You become frustrated by it. You try to push it away. Then you notice it again. And now you're thinking about why you're thinking about them. The thought has become a second thought. And then a third. Until the original memory isn't even the biggest problem anymore. Your reaction to the memory is. So perhaps the question isn't, why can't I forget them? Maybe the better question is, what does my mind still believe that memory means? Because sometimes, the person you can't stop thinking about isn't the person you're trying to return to. They're simply attached to a part of yourself that you haven't completely understood yet. And maybe that's why they're still there. Not because you want them back, but because your mind hasn't finished with the story. But here's where it gets even stranger. Sometimes the mind doesn't keep returning to a person because the memory is pleasant. It returns because the memory became emotionally important. And emotional importance changes the way we process experiences. That's why you can forget hundreds of ordinary conversations. But remember one sentence someone said to you 10 years ago. Not because that sentence was objectively important. Because you were important inside the story. You were hurt. You were surprised. You were rejected. You were loved. You were afraid. Something changed. And your brain marked the moment. This is one reason trying to force yourself to forget someone can backfire psychologically. Because now you're monitoring the thought. Don't think about them. And to know whether you're thinking about them, you have to check whether you're thinking about them. The mind has created a trap. You're trying not to think about something, while mentally checking whether you're thinking about it. The thought remains active. And maybe this explains something you've experienced. You can go weeks without thinking about someone. Then one completely ordinary moment brings them back. A smell. A street. A song. A sentence. And suddenly, there they are. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going backwards. It doesn't necessarily mean you still love them. It may simply mean that something in the present activated an old network of associations. The memory was never destroyed. It was simply inactive. But there's a deeper question. Why do some people remain psychologically important long after they stop being emotionally important? Because sometimes people become symbols. Someone who rejected you can become a symbol of inadequacy. Someone who abandoned you can become a symbol of being unwanted. Someone who believed in you can become a symbol of who you were when you felt capable. And now, when you remember them, you may actually be remembering a version of yourself. The person is only the doorway. The real subject is you. This changes the question completely. Instead of asking, why can't I forget them? Try asking, what version of myself appears whenever I remember them? Maybe it's the person you were before everything changed. Maybe it's the person who wanted to be chosen. Maybe it's the person who never got an apology. Maybe it's the person who still wants an answer. And sometimes, understanding that difference is more useful than trying to erase the memory. Because memories don't always need to disappear. Sometimes they just need to stop controlling the meaning you give them. So if someone from your past suddenly appears in your mind tonight, don't immediately interpret it as longing. Don't assume it means you made the wrong decision. Don't assume it means you should go back. Instead, pause. And ask, what exactly am I missing? Is it them? Or is it the feeling? The attention? The possibility? The version of yourself you were around them? The future you imagined? Or simply an answer you never received? Because those are completely different things. And perhaps that's the most uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, you don't miss the person. You miss the version of reality that existed when you still believed the story would end differently. And once you understand that, the memory can remain, without owning you. The person can remain in your past, without remaining in your future. Because remembering someone is not the same thing as wanting them back. And thinking about someone doesn't necessarily mean your heart is asking for them. Sometimes, your mind is simply asking you to understand what happened to you.